Hi everyone, Steve Healey, a partner with RSM, and welcome to our latest episode of our Coffee Conversation series. Today I'm joined by Teresa Dyson. Teresa is a non-executive board member on a number of public company boards, including Seven West Media, and is also a member of the Foreign Investment Review Board. So welcome, Teresa. Really appreciate you joining us for a coffee. We do this from time to time, but normally we do it face to face. So this is a little bit different. But maybe before we kick off, it is about having a coffee and a chat over a coffee. So can I ask you what you're drinking today?
I have double espresso from my machine in the kitchen. When we built this house, I had only a few sort of specific requirements. Laundry chute was one, and an inbuilt coffee machine was one of the others. So yes, I usually have a couple of double espressos in the morning before I get going. So
very good.
Yes, thanks.
I can relate, Tyler. I've got a latte from our coffee vendor downstairs. They do a very good one. So so that's my drink of choice. But again, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a long time since we've caught up. But maybe to start with, if you could share a little bit about yourself, about who is Teresa Dyson with all of us.
Yep, sure. So my background is in law, primarily in tax, financial structuring and international finance transactions. So I was sort of a partner of a global law firm and accounting firm for a number of years. And then over the last sort of 3 years, I've exited legal practice and sort of built up a portfolio of non-executive directorships. It's across, as you said, some listed companies. So I've got 3 listed companies in my portfolio. Some state and territory utilities across Queensland and Northern Territory, and then some federal government appointments. Notably, you mentioned Foreign Investment Review Board, also the National Housing Finance Investment Corporation and Takeovers Panel. So pretty broad range of companies, which I really enjoy.
Excellent. No, very good. No, thank you for that. If you wouldn't mind, maybe tell us about some of those roles. You don't have to go through all of them if you don't want to, but feel free to. But maybe a couple of those roles, in particularly given the current environment too. And we'll talk about some of the challenges and opportunities. We'll get onto that very shortly. But if you could just tell us about, what your role kind of consists of, potentially with Foreign Investment Review Board and maybe Seven West Media as a couple of examples.
Yep, sure. So with most of the boards, they work, regardless of whether they're listed or not, they sort of work a lot like listed boards. So even the sort of state and territory utilities and NIFIC are all very much structured with a board structure, committees. So for most of my roles, I'm a non-executive director and also chair the audit and risk committee in whatever name it happens to have across the different roles. FIRB is a little bit different. So FIRB, we've got 7 members of the Foreign Investment Review Board. We're supported by Treasury and the ATO in relation to reviewing all the applications, and I can go into sort of how that's all working a little bit later. But usually the roles involve a lot of travel. So that's been absent for the last few months. There's been a lot of this sort of conversation and meetings, and I think like everyone, we're all getting better at them and understanding the nuances of trying to read some body language and different sort of communications via screens. So I think everyone across all of my organisations, people have sort of really stepped up and taken to the digital and technological sort of solutions very quickly and really well.
And well, thanks for that, Teresa. That gives us a really good segue actually into the next question, and that really is, and given the breadth of roles that you've got and the kind of, I guess, the experiences you must have across those, very, very different in some cases. Can you share with us maybe some of the challenges that you've had to confront, that you've had to deal with over the last few months since we've been in this situation that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think there's different challenges across all the different sectors that I'm involved with. So, ranging from the Gold Coast Hospital and Health Board, obviously frontline, sort of services there. So, you know, very much taking the crisis as it emerged, and sort of now as we're hopefully seeing, well, certainly at the Gold Coast, seeing less infections, and certainly I think we've only got 2 actives now. You know, sort of how we get back to the ordinary sort of course of things. So that one was probably the most intense reaction because of its very nature as frontline. With a number of the utilities, again, they're sort of very much emergency essential services. So, you know, we did sort of see shifts in the way that our workforce had to work, the way that we programmed different sort of works around the country. The shift from people being, you know, in offices and in particular working environments to everybody being at home meant that, you know, there were at times some greater emphasis on communication with customers in relation to, you know, turning electricity off and things like that. Everyone had freezers full of food, so, you know, just trying to manage all of that sort of thing. But again, I think really recognising some of the digital and technological advances that can sort of come through the other side of all of this. The media industry, I suppose, touches on a lot of things. I mean, in terms of the media itself, you know, there was no AFL for Channel 7, Olympics has been postponed, so, you know, really major and significant impacts on the business itself. But then looking at the advertiser sort of side of things as well, sort of really getting a good sort of feel for where the general sort of spend in the community is sort of going, and, you know, who's able to sort of keep going through, and who might you know, take a bit longer or would need that more support. And then Foreign Investment Review Board obviously has been the challenges there, where the Treasurer announced on a day that thresholds would be dropped from, in many cases, over $1 billion to 0 in terms of the types of transactions that would be reviewed. So that meant, you know, quite a bit of communication with the community, particularly business and legal community, to make sure that everyone understood what that meant and, you know, the implications of it. And then obviously now, you know, a significant increase in the number of applications that we review, and, you know, in the environment of, you know, a lot of industries and organisations needing some financial support, or being in a place of, you know, calling on extra capital, or you know, there just being general investment decisions. You know, there's a lot of diverse activity in the foreign investment market at the moment as well.
Yeah, sure. No, that's great. Thanks for sharing. It's often said that every cloud has a silver lining, and I think, you know, no one would dispute that we've got a pretty dark cloud hanging around us. But in terms of the silver linings, have you seen any? You know, are there any opportunities that have sort of come up your way that you've identified again over the last 4 months, possibly coming out of some of those challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the embracing of technology just across the board, I think, will have long-lasting positive impact. So just the fact of people understanding how to work remotely, or what sort of parts of businesses can be done without humans necessarily needing to interact very closely because of the, you know, restrictions, but understanding what digital solutions are out there at the moment and what can be developed. I think that we would never have had that sort of shift. You know, one of the big examples I always think of is in the medical and you know, sort of hospital sort of sphere, the introduction of the TeleHealth. You know, just by introducing a Medicare code for it, which, you know, had been in some sort of discussions across multi-government level for years, and, you know, it was able to be done, you know, with a flick of a switch, and the whole way that that medicine is sort of practiced, I think, going forward will change, which will be more efficient. So you'll have, you know, the freeing up of that sort of, you know, physical space and time for the people that need that sort of thing. So there'll always be need across all industries for the human interaction, you know, the face-to-face and human sort of attendance at things. But I think out of all of this, we will develop, and all companies will develop, a more focused and efficient way of balance and understanding, you know, who needs to be where, when, and, you know, if there are other solutions that are more efficient or even safer, particularly in some of the sort of heavy work industries, then, you know, I think there'll be a much more of an openness to embrace those going forward.
Yeah, look, thanks very much, Teresa, for sharing that. And it's always good to finish on a positive note. And we hear so many bad things happening at the moment, but when you do, sit back and you think about that, there really are some positive things that are coming out of this. And I think a lot of us, we agree on that. That in the long term, there will be some good that comes out of a lot of what's bad. So, look, thanks again. Thanks very much for joining us. Really good to see you again. It has been far too long. It'd be good to catch up, face to face in person. I'm sure we will before too long. But again, Teresa, thank you very much. And thanks everyone for joining us. If you did hear anything from Teresa today that you'd like to hear a little bit more of, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks for joining us. And Teresa, once again, thank you so much.
Cheers. Thanks.
Thanks.
See you soon.